What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MMB Performance Podcast. And I got to say, I'm excited for our guest today. So someone I followed probably for the last 3 or 4 years, give or take. So I'm a little bit newer into the endurance world and into OCR racing in general. But someone that I've been inspired by. It's motivated me a ton. And someone I've, without her knowing, because she's met a billion people, I've seen her many times. The last year I saw her at Worlds, which was pretty cool. And I want to go over a few things because Kris here is only 27, just a little bit of what she's achieved, and it's wild. And I think something I love and respect about her is the diversity of what you've accomplished in 27 years, basically. Here, so basically, from World's Toughest Mudders, where I met you, back to back World's Toughest Mudder champs, first female hit 100 miles at World's Toughest. Just recently, you were out in Tough Mudder Affinity, did that race, which was probably a really cool experience. Mix of Hydrox, Spartan, Savage, 100Ks, 100 milers, 6 times, I think, or something like that in the grit games, and just kind of dominating in the sport in general. So I think I'm interested to talk to you a lot about your headspace, and I'm interested to talk your training a little bit, your nutrition. But I want to start this off for me because we don't really know each other really well. Is you growing up, Kris, when did you start transition from like maybe being into sports and an athlete to actually transition to that competitive side of endurance racing?
Well, I grew up in zero sports, so I never really was a sports athlete. I ran a couple times. My kind of wanted to run, but didn't really have a lot of opportunity for that. Dabbled in a couple sports, but never did anything formally. So grew up like athletics, spent a lot of time outdoors. But it wasn't until I did a Spartan race in 2016, and I guess I was like 19 years old then, 18, 19. And that was kind of my first real anything competitive, but it wasn't until the following year after a couple of Spartans, because I was just doing it for fun. I thought it was fun, when I recognized there was a competitive side of it. And I first got into the competitive side of things when I was 20, almost 21. So just in the past 6, 7 years. I found out there's a competitive side of Spartans. I realized there's an elite field. And the first elite I ran just to get an earlier wave, and then I ran an open. I guess the next race was when I was like, oh, there's an elite. I want to run, sign up and run this. And I ended up placing third. And that's where I was like, oh, this is fun. I hadn't done much running, even though I, marginally enjoyed it here and there. I had zero running background. And so I didn't really enjoy running, and, running 13 miles, the 13 miles is kind of, their half marathon distance, even their 10K, their 5K. I was like, I don't really like running. I can't run that far. But I found that Spartans made it very approachable because you could run a little ways, do an obstacle. And to me, the obstacles were playing like a kid, they're just a fun thing to do. And they came, I think, because I was so young, had spent plenty of time outside. I definitely had the basic body strength and coordination to be able to do the obstacles. So yeah, the first couple ones I did, I only did them because, I was like, oh, I can be competitive in this. I like it. It's fun. It's being outside, and I can put up with the running because there's a break for obstacles. And that was kind of my, I guess the end of that year. That was my approach, was I can do these just because I can kind of have to do them. The following year is when, I guess at the end of that year, where I did a couple races, I found out about the Spartan Ultra, and I wanted to try that. And my thought was I could walk that and finish it under the cutoff times. Ended up running the whole thing, ended up even placing third in it, because I think it's one of those things, I'm a very competitive driven person. And up until finding Spartan racing and ultra running, I channeled that in very different ways. As a child growing up, I took over all the chores because nobody did it the way I wanted it to. I did it the fastest. I did it the best. So I very much had this competitive spirit, even, in school. We do these little fact sheet, little math quizzes, and I always had to be the first one done. I would study those. I would make sure I had everything memorized so I would be the first one. I had to be better than my older sister at everything. All these things, I was definitely very competitive, but it did not find its way into sports until I was right at 20, almost 21. 2021. Anyways, so I did a 50K, and again, I was like, I can do this.
Sure.
did it, ended up having to compete, did okay. And then from there, it escalated pretty quickly from, well, if I can run a 50K, I can probably run a 50 miles. So, a couple months later, I ran a 50 mile. And then like, if I can run a 50 mile, I can run 100. So it very much went from like, well, if I can do this, like, what else can I do? So it's very much a journey of coming from a very secluded, sheltered childhood, where I didn't really have any big aspirations, big dreams. I didn't, wasn't in competitive sports. I didn't have a lot of outlets, to finding all of these opportunities to push and challenge myself, experience the world in different ways. Yeah, so it kind of all started at about 2021 with Spartan racing. That's what did it.
That's so cool. I love that. Now, how
So
many siblings do you have?
I actually have a lot.
Okay.
I am the fourth of 8 kids total. So I have seven
Wow.
siblings. Yeah,
I'm the
three
oldest
older
of
and four
four.
younger.
I'm the oldest of four, and
Yeah,
everyone's like, "Oh, that's a good amount." 8. My dad was one of 10, so it's like in that
yeah.
same realm. 3 were adopted, so like 2 from China,
Okay.
1 from Romania. It's just everywhere. But it's
Wow.
such a crazy family. Yeah. Like, how much was your competitive drive growing up in that household? Was that related to having so many siblings? Were you competitive with them, or is that something internally that you had more just for yourself?
I think a little of both.
Okay.
I think I am a very driven, motivated person, and being born fourth, and like I'm a middle child. So being a middle child, I feel like I never really got privileges from being the oldest. And I was also in the middle of 3 girls. So,
Okay.
my 2 sisters and I were kind of clustered together a lot. So I was in the middle of the family, in the middle of these 3 girls. And I feel like I got like, I think a lot of my driven personality developed from having to, like, I didn't get any privileges from being the oldest, didn't get any privileges from being the youngest. And I felt like I had to like put in the work to, like, get anything, be
Yeah.
anything, which I'm very grateful for. And I love being a middle child. I love that, I love my place in that. And I love what it's come from. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think I would have been driven, like, I'm a very high energy
Sure.
person anyways, but for sure the family placement, I think definitely impacts that,
Oh,
because yeah, I'm a classic middle child.
I feel like that. And like from like mental toughness to adversity to like, maybe like trying to compete with people that are older than you, and that whole dynamic of just trying to, it's either going to transition 2 ways. One, you're kind of be like quiet, or it's just like this go, 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 high energized person that led to this competition. And when you were bringing up, it's funny because I can relate to you in this. Do you remember those like 100 question multiplication tables and like the addition tables where you had to like race through them? Have you ever done those before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
We
So
did
like,
them every morning. We had a timed, yeah,
yeah, so I can
that was
relate to
exact.
that
Those were
instantly. It
the,
brought me back to that. I'm like, all right, here we go, here we go, and it's just like running down the table, and then boom, tap out, you win. That's it. So I get
mhm,
that.
yep.
Now, how
And
much?
I put
Go.
so much effort into those to make sure that I was always the first one to be done. Like that was my competition. So
I
yeah.
get it. I get it. So
But
do you think you thrive a lot off of other people, like the competitive environment? Like, because a lot of people, you get the typical answer from a lot of people that's like, no, I'm motivated by me. I want to be the best me possible. But there are a lot of people that like when the competition starts, like you see these people that go into different self-talk preparation modes, and it's just like, okay, events here, I want to beat everybody, so that is a part of it. Not that you're being mean, because the environments at these races are incredible, like everyone's so supportive. But like for me, I've always been that athlete, like I'm competitive with myself, but then when you're in that environment, it takes another step.
yeah, I would say I lean more towards the competitive with myself.
Okay.
Obviously, like, I want to be my best self. So everything that I do, like, other people have all kinds of opinions. Everybody thinks that you should be doing this, thinks you should do this, thinks you'd be good at this. And my biggest thing is I want to do all these competitions. I want to race. I want to compete just because I thrive off of the competition. I don't care if I have world championships, if I like, titles don't mean a lot to me. So that's where I would say I lean less towards the, like, I got to beat all the people and get these titles. Like, that will mean something to me. Like, I want to be the best me, and the best me means very, driven, hardworking, motivated. When I show up to a race, I want to win. Yes, I want to beat all these people, but only because I know that me at my best can beat these people and should beat these people. Like, I think I lean much more heavily into that because, again, for me, I think, like, I do all these competitions because I enjoy them. I love the challenge. I love the push. But at the end of the day, like, to me, I see them as motivation, as like kind of like games along the way. But the real, Like where it actually matters is in life. And so I want to be able to take my life in any direction, go on any kind of adventure, anything I want to do. I want my body to be capable of that. So I do a lot of Hydrox. I do a lot of 100 milers. I do all these things. And I do them because I find them to be enjoyable. They're challenging. They're a great atmosphere. They're great motivation for training. But I'm not very attached to like, well, I have to, I mean, I would love to run at Western States, but do I care? Like, no, like, but I will do everything I can to get there. Again, not because I feel like Western States, well, then I'll be something. I guess that's kind of what it is. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not relying on winning, on achievements to validate my effort. For me, like the effort is the validation, is the experience. And then I can take a week off and go out to the mountains and climb peaks for a week. And like, that's what I want. That's what brings me like joy and happiness. And yeah, but I can't do that every day. Every day I can go to the gym and I can work out and I can run before work, So those are the kind of things to me, I see them as kind of placeholders. Like they're kind of fun and they're little like simulations of the real thing, but I don't care if I win anything, if I don't. So I guess all that to say, I would say I'm more on the we call it internal motivation of just like, well, I want to be my best self. So when I show up to this race, I want to be my best self and I want to beat people because I want to win, because I think my best self is capable of winning. But not because, I will lose all motivation. I will lose all incentive if I don't win these things. Like none of that really matters. It's not about beating people. It's not about names, but it's about giving my best effort. And I guess I want to be in a place where I believe my best effort can win. So it's more of that, like, I think I can win and I want to win because I've worked hard for this and I can win, not because I need it. I
Yeah, it's
guess. Yeah.
validation, it seems like, just for the work you put in, right? That's just like, it shows
A
what
little
you,
bit.
in a way, it's like, hey, I want to see what I'm capable of. I'm gonna
Yeah.
put in the work. Here's the goal. Can I live up to the full amount of work that I want to put in to achieve this A, B, C, D type thing? And I think it's
Right.
so cool because, to your point, like you described like the journey is the importance, like that ride of putting in the day-to-day work and everything. And then that allows you to do anything. And speaking of that too, is you went into this confidence side where it's like you proved one after another, you can go to the next race, to the next race. I can do the 50, I can do the 100, I can do the 100, and so on and so forth. The 24-hour. Of all those races you've achieved, what one is the most fun to you, and what one was the most challenging to train for?
What was the most fun and what was the most challenging to train for? I guess I would say kind of as a blanket, because I don't know if I could identify like a specific one. I think
Sure.
because I don't spend specific time building up to a specific race, I don't know that really,
There's not
I
that
don't
big
really
of a
have,
moment. Yeah.
right. But I would say, what was it, the most fun and the most
Yeah. So
fun to train for?
the reason I asked it too is because, for example, like, you have a lot of these smaller races that take a lot of training to get ready for, but it isn't the miles, it isn't the grind, it isn't the same build up for like a 24-hour race, like how much volume you have to put in. So a lot of times I'm just curious. In a lot of these questions, my curiosity is, my background is in sports psychology. So I love mental performance. I love kind of tapping in to figure out where your thought is on some stuff. But yeah, it was more of like, is there a race that comes ahead, like really fun race, fun moment, great environment? That was a ton of fun. And if there's just anything out of curiosity, and then when it goes to the big picture, like, I guess what was like the one that was the hardest to train for? You look at the Barkley, which, like, unfortunately the situation right now, you look at world's toughest mudder, which these long, these 100 milers that you've done. I mean, there's got to be gratifying, and exciting, but also the training and they've got to be some of the toughest too, mentally and physically.
Yeah. So I guess I would say, because the two kind of main areas I'm in right now are ultra running and then Hydrox. And ultra
Yep.
running is 50 to 100 milers, long drag out ordeals. And Hydrox is a very fast paced, strength based, like high energy competition. It's over in an hour. I would say I, um, I think I enjoy the training. I guess I really enjoy the training that goes into an ultra because it's just time spent on trails, basic strength. Um, but I would say when it comes to race day, it's very challenging and it takes everything in me to get through these 100 milers. But then I would say it's kind of the flip flop for Hydrox. A lot of the training is a lot of grindy stuff. It's a lot of time in the gym, which is not really something I prefer. I appreciate it because I think it makes me a better all around athlete. And the training is interesting. So the training is okay, but it's like it takes effort. Like I would love to just run trails every day. So having to go to the gym, put in this strength work, I would say the training is more difficult. But when I compete in a Hydrox race, the energy levels, the production they put on, the way like it's just so fast paced and so like it's an adrenaline rush a little bit. So
Yeah.
I would say that one is very fun to raise. The training is more challenging, but it's very fun to raise. And it's kind of the opposite in the ultra where the training is all fun. It's all fun and games. And then the race is like a really good test of mental and physical strength and endurance. And so I'd say, yeah, I kind of have a little bit of a flip flop there
Yeah.
of
Well, it's curious too, is like, what does your training look like? Since you literally, I think after Worlds, right? The next weekend you were racing in a Savage race or something like that.
I
So,
think so. Yeah.
yeah, sound crazy. So what does your training look like on a week to week basis? Are you like, you don't have to get crazy specific, but like from like running to like training in the gym? Cause you're such a diverse athlete. So it's curious how you balance everything, but yet not get too burnt out or broken down.
Yeah. I loosely, like my loose framework is I travel mostly on the weekends. I travel and race. So I have Monday through Thursday. I work from 8 to 5:30 each day. So my workout chunk is from 3 a.m. to 7 or 4 a.m. to 7. I have 4 to 7. So I'm getting up first thing in the morning and from 4, so I have 3 hours of training each morning. And my goal is to get, I guess I just say it like loosely, running and workout in. And that looks different every day. Sometimes like I can go to the CrossFit class and that fits in with my training. So I'll run first and that run will either be an easy run on the trails, it'll be a track workout, it'll be, whatever it needs to be. Now I'm getting ready for an Ironman this summer. So sometimes it's going and biking and swimming for a bit, biking at the gym and swimming. So anyways, I basically have that 3 hour span that I kind of tweak every week. I kind of tweak per day, like depending on what race I have coming up, and then what the workouts at the gym look like, and what I feel like I need to do running wise to kind of fit it all in. So that's the loose plan is 3 hours per day, and typically on Sunday, I'll kind of like sit down and plan out the week loosely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Are you
that's kind of
competing?
it, and then.
No, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and then I spend all day working. I'm a nanny, so I have 2 to 3 children all day. And I sometimes can kind of work stuff in there where I'll take them for a walk, I'll take them hiking. Like I can kind of throw in extra things. And sometimes that's kind of supplements my morning workouts. But then when I get off work, I'm pretty much like dinner in bed. I'm out. Yeah, so that's kind of how that works.
No, that's cool. Cause it's like a lot of people, I'm always curious too, because of how much, because I think everybody looks at you and they're like, oh, she's sponsored, full paid. This is her ride. Like, this is all she does. But the fact that you have this balance going on and you make time for it, you have to love it. But just shows like you can be at the highest level if you're willing to make the time. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle is like, it's not easy, but it's doable. You just have to put in the work. And I think that's the struggle for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah, 100% agree. I really like the balance that working out versus working life gives me, where I work out because I enjoy it, because it makes me a better person. I enjoy, and I'm very much a morning person, love to do it first thing in the morning. But if that was all I did all day, I could see it like mentally wearing me down a lot. So then I get to spend the rest of the day pouring into these babies and spending like time just like being like a very human experience of raising children. And I really like the balance that it gives of where like I can't overthink, I can't overdo. Um, I have other things to move on to, and I really appreciate it. So
There was a runner. I'm trying to think of her name. She was an ultra runner. She what was her name? She won I'm forgetting. But anyway, I was listening to her. She was talking to a podcast. She went through a lot, but she struggled with that transition when she went full time. She was an attorney for Apple, worked in the morning. Um she was like top, and I don't know if it was just ultra or OCR. But anyway, she was an attorney.
um It sounds like Amelia Boone,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, yeah, Amelia, I'm having a moment, right? But it's that concept of, I think it's hard when you start to have your full-time job to be that. It takes some of the fun out of it. And then it starts the pressures, like you got to perform, you have sponsors, you have all this stuff going on. And I think even in my world as like a coach, you have this balance where like you're living in the gym, you're training clients, and then wanting to be in the gym to do all those things all the time. It's hard. And I think you need that separation to an extent, which I think you have
Yeah,
a nice
I very
balance
much
with.
agree.
So different, which is sweet.
Yeah.
So with right now with going on, we were talking really briefly before we got on with the Barkley with the knee. So you're, right now, is there a rehab stint or like how long you're trying to like? Is it just day by day at this point until your next kind of step? What's going on because everything that happened with the
Um,
meniscus?
yeah, well, I've pretty much had to clear my schedule for the next 6 weeks. I think I have another 6 weeks of just very minimal activity, a lot of rehab. Um, yeah, obviously it's not ideal. Took me a little while to be like, okay, well, this is it. But at the same time, took me about 2 weeks to really like have anything to share because I just kind of had to process and cry about it and be upset that I just have to sit around. Um, one thing I very much realized is I love running and not being able to run. I didn't really have a lot of like interest in working out. I don't really care about getting super strong upper body or anything. And it took me a little while, like, okay, well, whether I love it or not, it will still benefit me long term. So I found that out where like running is definitely the passion. Like running is like the driving force behind it all. The other thing I definitely came to was I like having to cancel everything. I had to start clearing things off the calendar, cancel flights, cancel all these things. Um, and I kind of felt indifferent about it. And I was like, am I, just not in a prime mental state? Is there something wrong with me? Like, what's going on? But I came to realize like I care about all these things. I want to compete in these things. I would say like Barkley, I was very much looking forward to that. I earned a spot in that. And the chances of me getting back in since I had to pull out so late, I will not get like an automatic entry next year or like even a chance of it. I have to earn my way back in. So that was a hard decision to make, but I realized in all this, like, it doesn't bother me that much. And that's where I realized, like, I really appreciate where my head is at in all of this, I guess, because I don't care about any one of these competitions. I sign up for them because obviously they inspire me, they excite me, I want to do them. But at the end of the day, like, I care much more about living a long and healthy life. I want to be running in 5 years. I want to be running in 10 years. I want to be doing 100 milers in 15 years. And so that made it a very easy decision to like, okay, pull out, put the brakes on, chill, relax, really put the time into letting my body heal and repair because any of these short-term things actually mean zero to me. But I do want to have a healthy, strong body long term. And up until now, doing all the things, traveling, doing all the races has contributed to that strong body. I just hit a point where like I hit a breaking point. And so recognize first I was like a little angry, a little frustrated, like why is my body not just coming back around? Because I've had plenty of little, little things here and there, a little bit of tape, a couple days of rest, you know, some extra stretching fixes it. And this is the first time where it's like a hard stop. No, my body will not just fix itself in a couple of days. And I truly have to like stop and take a break. And that's where like I was definitely a little frustrated because I was like, no, I can do it all. I have been doing it all. I can do this to realizing like, okay, I have hit a point where like my body said no. And to accept that, I think that's huge towards like accepting it and recognizing, okay, like long term, none of this will matter, but it will matter that I've taken the time to take care of my body. So
I
yeah,
appreciate you sharing that
that's
because
kind of
that's a hard thing, especially. And I was going to ask you, but you already kind of explained it with like if you had a big injury before. And I think a lot of athletes that I've spoken with or even worked with, it's like that the first big injury or like that, luckily yours is it sucks, but it's not career ending, right? So, but it's that mental flip of like it becomes catastrophic and like end of the world in that moment. And then it's like trying to work through that mental headspace to try to work yourself back. And that is something that is not easy. And then also like having the self-awareness and discipline to not push yourself to break and be like, no, 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 I'm going to work around it. I'm going to do the date. I love David Goggins, but you'll bring out that, oh, I'm just going to suffer through and do it when it's like big picture. That's going to be a horrible thing for you to do. But that's not an easy thing to take that step back, especially when you have so many people looking at you and you have such a big name in the sport. Like that's not easy to do to not just push through. So I give you tons of credit for that.
Yeah, that is one thing. Like my inner voice is very positive and very like I guess I kind of see as like there's my body, my physical body, and then there's like my spirit, like my soul. And so I kind of see those as like two things that kind of need to work together to make everything work. And so, I mean, it's your brain versus your body kind of thing. But I think about that, like I am very kind to my body. I take great care of it. I'm very like gracious. Like when I mess up anything, like I'm really like impressed with myself and very happy. And that's not like a prideful thing. I feel like it's more of like the two different, like the mental and the physical side of myself kind of supporting each other. It's kind of the way I see it. And so, yeah, I am not one to push through an injury because even though mentally want to do these, I want to compete in these things, I want to do it, like again, like I was a little frustrated with my body, like why are you not coming through for me? But at the same time, like, okay, wait, I asked so much from you. If you're asking for a break, like my body is physically saying like, hey, we need to put a pause on things. I like am pretty quick to okay, like what let's take care of the physical body. And like mentally, I feel like I very much see the contribution. Like I can't just mentally plow ahead. It takes a lot of mental strength to get through these things, but I can't do any of it without a physically well-functioning body. And I think those two have to work together very well. And that's where it comes to like pushing through injury, running with a knee that's in pain. Like if I'm in pain, I like to me, I guess I see it as like I want to respect my physical body. And if it's in pain, it's telling me there's something off and something needs to change. I can't just like, no, shut up and run for me. Like, no, like that's not how that works. Like I need to respect my body because my body respects my brain when it tells it to do stupid stuff, it goes and does it. So I guess I kind of see it as those two things kind of working together. And so along the knee thing, somebody was like, well, I'm sure, it's been building for a long time. This is just finally breaking point. I'm like, no, like I've had zero pain, zero issues until, I was not zero, like, I'll go a couple days a week, whatever. But I do not just plow through anything because the way I see it is I need to, even though I'm a very determined, driven, competitive person mentally, physically I have to respect my body because I only get one body and I do need to like respect it and take care of it. So yeah, I'm not one to just push through and, keep running on anything injured. I'm a very like, okay, like let's stop, let's evaluate, like let's give you some time and figure out what's going on here. So
I
that's
think
my approach to
that's
things.
a great approach because like you said is this sport, especially in endurance, as you get in ultra, you can speak more than most, is like, yeah, your body has to be healthy, but your mind has to be dialed in at such a high level. Like you got to have that combination of being really good at like being kind to yourself. So like a lot of people that I talk to are just like conversations I love to have is like self-talk, what you say to yourself, what you say out loud, the impact you have, like how important that is on not just like your day-to-day life and how you feel, but who you end up surrounding yourself with, like the performance when you do go out there. Is that something you're very mindful of, whether it's competition or just day-to-day life, like making sure you're not speaking down to yourself, making sure you're trying to focus on what you can control and those positive type things? Is that something you actually think about at all?
Yes, for sure. I would say um over the past 10 years have definitely like worked on my mindset. I've come a long ways in my mindset. And I would say I definitely like your body listens to the things you think and say. And when you like, yeah, like that physically affects you. And so I am always like, I gave my best effort. Here's a reason why I didn't do as well. Like to me, I'm very, and it's not making excuses, it's not justifying, but it's very like I want to be very like logical and reasonable with what I expect from my body. And then when my body performs, I think another big part of that is like choosing to be grateful. And that is something that I consciously choose every day, to just be like I am grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be in this body. I'm grateful for the opportunities I have. And anytime that I lose something that I thought I had, I think it's kind of the recognition that like I don't actually have anything. Like I am grateful, like I get to exist in this space and I like have all of these like opportunities and these things that I get to do and get to experience. But like I'm grateful just for each moment as it is. I don't feel any sense like, or try not to feel like any sense of entitlement, any sense of I have to have this, I must do this. I do my best, because it has not always come naturally to me, to live in the moment and be grateful for the moment that I'm in, and this moment that I'm alive and what I am experiencing. And I think you can positively reshift, or positively reframe so many things, to even when it's a negative experience and that did not make me feel good, whatever it is, there is always something to be grateful for and some positive to find on it. And I would say, not to a point of toxic positivity, like not everything is great and everything's
Yeah,
fantastic,
right. The
but
delusion.
yeah, in the reality of things, you can choose to find something to be grateful for, to be thankful for, to celebrate. I mean, it's kind of celebrating the small wins, and genuinely, not the toxic positivity, but understanding that in everything we go through in life, like that is the experience of being human. And I am very grateful to be a human, to be alive, to get to experience things. And you can't have the good without the bad. And to understand the bad, like, yeah, just kind of like everything works out, everything is always moving, and you cannot control anything in life except for your response to it. And I choose to respond with gratitude. So,
I love that. I've said that so many times that like you can't, like you look at someone, you're like, you can't control much. You can only control how you react to that situation, and to your point, it's like you have two choices. You can look at any given situation, no matter how bad it is, that like, you know what, you can play to a point a victim and poor me and the life is horrible and everything is the end of the world and my life sucks. Or you can be like, you know what, all right, like this happened to me. How do we face adversity? What can we do to improve? Like lose your job, this happens, break up, all that. I mean, that translates all to life. In these races, I feel like from my experience, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder and that was a different world. Training into endurance, it was an ego check. Like that was like, hello, how you doing? Compared to the strength world. But so you get hit in the face so many times, like, and then your point, you like prove to yourself you can do these things, that you can do more. And I think that's why Spartan, Tough Mudder, all these things are just so popular, because I think a lot of people challenge themselves to do things that maybe they don't think is possible, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden it
yeah,
is, but it is, that's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
When it comes to oh, you were talking about one thing and I lost my train of thought, but it was with the mindset side of it. Um, with stuff going forward now, like, is there any huge goals that you want to try to reach? Like you talked about an Ironman at the end of the year. Like, are there any like really big things you're focused on, or are you truly taking that like week by week approach at this point?
A little of both. Um, I guess the one of the bigger focuses is Hydrox World Championships, which is in early June. So I'd say that is a big focus. These whole like 3 months were supposed to be heavily focused on that. And instead, we'll see where that puts us. But I plan to be there. I am not actually qualified for like the Elite 15, which is the top level of competition, but I am qualified to run doubles with my little brother. So in my head, I may not be able to compete at the top level, which I would much prefer, which I want to do. But I will for sure be able to run doubles with my brother. So that's kind of like the next big thing, I would say. And then beyond that, I had a summer of Ironman, 100 miler, 200 miler, several like big efforts planned. And now a lot of that is a bit more up in the air. I'm not sure where all that will go. So yeah, a little
Is
bit
that more the
like
knee at this
Hydrox
point?
World Champs is definitely right. Depending on the knee, and just kind of having to evaluate the fact that my knee has like decided to do this has caused me a little bit of pause of like, I still want to challenge myself. I want to do the most that I can and enjoy these physical challenges, but also evaluating like, am I doing too much? Am I doing enough to prepare myself for these and make sure like set myself up well for them? Yeah, so a little bit of reevaluating to make sure to like making sure that my activities align with like my long-term goals, which is long-term health and longevity. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you think you'll end up at Worlds again this year? Toughest Mudder?
I'm undecided. Um, 2 years ago was my first year. And I finished that year. I left that year feeling that's it. I came, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I won, I hit 100 miles. Like that was it. I was very happy and I was kind of, one and done. I think I'm good. kind of check that box. I'm happy. And then it wasn't until I think like 2 months before Worlds this past year. I didn't think I was going to do it until about 2 months before when it kind of the bug bit me again. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I actually kind of want to do this.
Sure.
Um, so that was kind of a last minute. And then unfortunately for me, I think that left me, I felt like I probably the lead up to it. I didn't really like do a great lead up to it. But that left me very much like I have more to give. Like I was not happy with what I gave in that one. So my body still like came through for me. I did a great job. I won, but it was not what I wanted that
Right.
next year to be, I guess. So there's a big part of me that's like, I still have more to prove. I want to go back. I want to do this again. Um, at the same time, now that I've done it 2 years in a row, I've realized that that 24 hours, that form of competition in the mud, the obstacles, the water, the cold, it definitely has a longer term effect on my body than I would prefer it to. And even though I'm able to jump right into things right after, the like residual healing from that takes closer to 3 months. And I don't love that. And so that's definitely one of those things that I'm kind of weighing. Is it worth it? It's definitely something I enjoy. It's a great challenge. It is something that I've really like loved participating in, but I'm kind of at the point now where in the grander scheme of things, is it worth it? So my head very much wants to,
Yeah,
like,
of
or I guess, yeah,
course.
like
Of
emotionally, I'm like, I
course.
gotta go back. I have more to give. But a little more logically, is it the best choice for me physically? I'm not quite sure yet. So we
Yeah.
shall see.
You make sense. I mean, you still got a ton of time to figure it out. And that just gives a perfect example that had nothing to do with the competition because you won, right? But you left a little out there where the deep down innards of you is sitting here like, I had another 10 miles, I had another,
Yeah.
it's just that little
Well,
bit.
I even had the option to run another 5 miles. And I was like, if I have the win, I'm done. Like, and that's like, I was not there ready to give 24
Mentally.
hours of strong effort. Yeah. So definitely left some on the table and I would like to go back and do right by that. So
Sure.
we'll see.
What was the 200 you were looking at? Because I don't know. Do you know who Scott Jenkins is?
The name sounds a little familiar.
It's
I'm
okay. So
not quite
Scott
sure.
Jenkins, I just did a podcast with 2 weeks ago. He is the
Okay.
first ever British man to complete the not the trifecta, the three 200 miles, three 200 milers, Moab, and two others in a 5.5 week span. So
Hmm.
crazy. The first ever British man to complete it came in fifth around the three. So I was curious what 200 was like in your mind because that is like when you get to these 200, 240s, you're going into like 70, 80, 90 hour ranges. It's getting crazy. So I was curious like what that thought process is or just what one you were thinking of like deep down.
Tahoe 200 is the one that I
Oh,
have in
yes.
my
Okay.
eyes.
So he did that one too.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that would be interesting. So is that something in the like that's a thought like this year, next year, like now with the injury, like a little setback?
I first wanted to do it 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it was one of those, I very much like the 100 mile distance, and I don't know that I'll like the 200. So I was a little bit reluctant, but I was like, no,
Sure.
I want to give it a shot. But I've now deferred 2 years. So this is the third year that I've been like supposed to do it.
Right.
And this was the year I'm supposed to do it. And so it's a big part of me, like, I got to do it this year. Um, but in the grand scheme of, in the bigger picture, it's a little up in the air currently.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's
yeah.
interesting too, because that mileage, you talk about getting taken out for a little while. I mean, that's a whole nother level of just tonnage on the body. You know what I mean? I mean, I think he was telling me he slept like 4.5 hours for the whole race, 3.5 hours for the whole race, which is bonkers. Over like 80 something
Yeah.
hours. It's crazy. I mean, it's amazing. And the thought process is like, I'm not at that level either. But the thought of like, is it possible? Like that's, I think, what it comes down. Is it possible? And I know you could do it, but it's like that proving yourself right mentality,
Right.
which is like awesome. And I love that. Um,
Yeah. Mm.
well, the thing I want to touch on too, because I actually had one of my friends asking me, how big of are like, I love the nutrition side. How much do you actually play into the nutrition? Like, are you someone that tracks their food? Are you someone that like does all that, just kind of eats based on feel? Like, because obviously fueling for like a week to week training, this much volume, like you got to be able to recover, you got to be able to perform. Like, what's your approach with the nutrition side?
Very minimal.
Okay.
I am not a nutritionist. I definitely loosely, more recently actually, have realized like I don't think I eat enough, and it's just because I'm busy and I'm going. And if I eat like a couple bites, it satisfies me enough to where I'm not like I don't remind myself to eat enough.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, so I've been focusing on trying to eat more protein. Loosely, I try to eat more like natural, real foods versus processed foods. Um, and yeah, just kind of like a generally balanced diet. And the bigger thing, like past 3 months, I've been more focused on making sure I'm eating enough food because I just forget to eat. And it's a problem when I'm doing everything that I
It's
do. But
wild that you're performed so
um,
well. Cause I mean, I
yeah.
feel like at the same time, it does take some stress off you because you're just like, like whatever. Courtney Delwalter or Delweiler, she just like eats nachos, this, that, does these, 200-mile, 200-mile races. But like, I feel like at the same time, there's not a stressful side to it, like overthinking the nutrition where you're just kind of like
Which
eat,
I'm
perform,
very
go,
grateful for.
eat,
Yeah.
perform, go. Yeah,
And but my problem is like I eat whenever I'm hungry, but there's a
sure.
lot of times where I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. And I'll like eat a bite or two, grab a little something. And then I'm, not hungry enough to remind myself to eat when that was not a full meal. Like I should have eaten a lot more. So that's my problem is just like I need to be a little more, I need to stress about it a little bit more. I would say in races, it pays off very well though, because I don't overthink, overstress it. When it comes to like all the aid stations, like I have to eat something at each aid station, and I always have like little snackies with me in my pack, and so it ends up working very well because I know generally what I like, and I like I have to eat something, and so I'll eat a little something, but it kind of works well because I can, you know, eat a couple somethings at each aid station, go to the next one, grab a couple more somethings, and it's just a very like off a feel,
Yeah.
and I feel like that supports my body well, where I don't have to eat. The only thing I do is, the only thing where I force myself is like, you have to eat.
Yeah.
But I don't have a problem eating when I'm exerting myself a lot. And when there's food in front of me every 5 to 10 miles, it's very easy to like, oh, let me eat a bunch of food and go on to the next one. Yeah. So, um, in some ways, I think it's worked out well for the race side of things. It's just on the day to day, I need to
Yeah.
eat more.
Well, I think too many people,
So,
like, I think a lot of people struggle starting something new or even take like so when they get into these things like I need my new shoes, I need the $700 Apple Watch, I need this, I need that, I need my nutrition dialed in, I got they want the perfect program, perfect all this stuff, and I think that's like it's such a limiting factor of like, hey, just get started, like stop overthinking the process and start like grinding. I feel like that's like a huge piece, which
yeah,
I feel like that's kind of more
yeah,
your mentality. It's like just put in the work. I have one more
for
question for
sure.
you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Mhm.
it's just keep it simple in regard to like if you could go back to your 20-year-old self just getting into the competitive side. I know you maybe get this question before, but I'm always curious because you kind of look back of all you learned in the last 7 years. Would there be any specific advice you give to help get yourself through this learning curve or this performance quicker, or just some advice you give to your 20-year-old self that would might be beneficial that you learned across that space over the last 7 years?
I think I would say like bet on yourself. I think I've spent the last 7 years building a lot of confidence that I did not have, I did not grow up with. And through running, I've been able to find that. But I would say it's taken me years I mean, I definitely started it very much like imposter, like I'm pretty good at this, but all these people have this pedigree of all these things that they've done. And like, who am I to think that I can come in and do this kind of thing? Yeah. So I feel like I've limited myself in some ways by thinking, definitely feeling like I don't belong, feeling like I'm I'm not a lifelong athlete, I'm kind of an average person. But I think I have a lot of potential that I'm still discovering. And I think it's taken me longer coming from a non-sports background, and a very like I was not confident, not yeah, like I just didn't know what I was doing. And so that's what I tell my younger self is like bet on yourself, and um I guess like put yourself out there and really like not believe in yourself is kind of cliche, but really kind of that of like I guess also coming from a non-sports background, I had no idea how to train. And so learning all of that has been a big learning curve. And I think if I had believed in myself, bet on myself a bit more, I think I would have put in a lot of work and effort and a lot more into it sooner. Like it's taken me a while to build where I'm at, of recognizing that I have abilities, I have uncovered potential. I just need to put in the work. It's taken me a while to get there because I definitely felt for a while like, do I even belong here? I haven't earned my place here. And yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say is I wish I were a more confident, um, confident in myself. And it's taken several people along the road who have believed in me more than I have to kind of pull that out of me. So,
I love
yeah.
that answer. And you kind of almost followed up what I wanted to say is like how much of that was, like I personally, like I'll tell you my side real quick is like I grew up as supportive family, like they were like very loving and kind. But at the same time, they kind of had my family had a very like they didn't have a growth mindset. It was very fixed. It was kind of like very, get a 9 to 5, do this, kind of live your life, and kind of blah 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 blah, very average lifestyle. And they were loving and caring, and there was nothing negative. But I didn't see people around me, and the family in the city I grew up, it was very small. Didn't see people do extravagant things in any type of fashion, physically, mentally, career. It was kind of like find a job, call it a day. And you brought it up well, that point of like once you start to surround yourself with the right people, and I think a lot of people in that last clip you gave will help a lot of people because I feel like they look at you as like gifted, always had it. 19, she was the best, but I think that little clip at the end that you just in that little piece you said, I think that can go a long way to a lot of people. That's like anyone is capable of what you're doing or any type of fashion. And it's just they have to surround themselves with the right people, have like you said, not over positive, but a positive environment that supports you, that's there to help you take chances, there when you fail, to push you out of that comfort zone where I think too many people live a mediocre life, whatever that standard is for everybody, but because they're scared of being uncomfortable. And that's the only way they're going to grow mentally and physically. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. I grew up like a similar setting where there was a very fixed prescription of what everybody was supposed to do. And I would say, I think it's the Iron Cowboy that says the
I
Iron Cowboy
love
did like
Iron
100
Cowboy.
Ironmans in 100 days. He pointed out his encouragement was find your hard. What is hard for you? What challenges you? And go in that direction. And I think that, like you had said, like, not everybody even wants to run 100 miles, do all these things, but life is hard and you get to choose your hard. And I think a beautiful hard to choose is something that challenges you, causes you to grow as a person, physically, mentally. And all that takes is finding what's hard, what challenges you, and going towards that. And yeah, I love that.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time, Kris, because I think, like I said, it's been fun getting to know you a little bit, like I said, but also just I think the people that do listen, there's a lot of valuable things they can take from it, from a mental standpoint, from a training standpoint, and just hopefully, you continue to crush it, get back out there sooner than later, which I have no doubt you will. So, like I said, I give you credit for dealing with that, processing it, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. I enjoyed this.
Absolutely.